I've never worked in a restaurant, let alone like started one, but all right. So I started thinking about, there's a lot of cheap burger joints, but like,
Correct.
There's not a quick serve burger joint that's like really high quality, best you can get burger. I'm that guy that if I want something, I'll figure out how to get it. It's just that drive I have that like, I want that and I don't stop until I get it.
Welcome to The Standard. My name's Rhett Weaver. The idea behind this project is where average people have raised their standards. We're going to show you the blueprint. Let's do this.
What up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of The Standard. I'm your host, Rhett Weaver. We've got Brad Knight, the owner of Burly Burger. How you doing, dude?
Good. How are you?
Good. I'm excited to have you.
I'm excited to be here.
I feel like every time I do an episode right now, I'm like, this is my really good friend. But genuinely, Brad lives like a block from me, so I know Brad for quite a while now. I'm excited about this one because, you know, you're a business owner. You've probably had to go through a lot to even get stuff started. But before we kind of dive into what Burly Burger, how it came to fruition, how it kind of played itself out, I guess give everybody some background on like where you grew up, what life was like, you know, kind of where it all started.
I grew up in a town called Moab, Utah. I mean, it's a small little place. It was a lot smaller when I grew up there, and now it's kind of blown up into this tourist destination, and it's a crazy place.
Yeah.
I loved growing up there, country boy through and through, just do as much redneck stuff as I can still to this day. I live in, I chose South Weber where we live because I wanted to be in a country setting, but we still live kind of in the city.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I grew up there, developed a love for off-roading, for Jeeping, and started a company in 2004 called Cliffhanger Jeep Rental.
Yeah, and I think that's what I want to kind of dive into. What a lot of people don't know is probably that right there. Like, what is Cliffhanger? How did that come to fruition? Like, who are you doing it with?
So Cliffhanger was, like I said, I always loved Jeeps. I always wanted the newest, latest, greatest Jeep. And for me, like, I'm that guy that if I want something, I'll figure out how to get it.
Yeah.
And it's just that drive I have that like, I want that and I don't stop until I get it.
One thing that I know about Brad is he's the KSL king. Like he flips his way up to buying that item.
Like my first house I bought off of KSL, and my first truck I got a lift on it for free. You know what I mean? I built my dream truck off of KSL because I wanted it.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to make it happen. But
for a lot of people out there, I think this is an interesting subject, right? So I guess what were you doing at that time in Moab for work, right? And then how did you even decide like, hey, I'm going to flip my way through or like the KSL side of stuff, buy and sell or try and barter or try and figure out how to get what you wanted?
Well, so Cliffhanger started because I loved Jeeps. I wanted to be involved in Jeeps, and my dad owned a hotel in Moab, and there was an opportunity to put Jeeps to help his customers or basically an accommodation for them.
Yep.
And I wanted it. The Jeep Rubicon had just come out, and I wanted one so bad.
Yep.
Like I was doing anything I could get. I'm like, you know what? We're going to rent Jeeps. And I know I can make the payment on it. I just have to rent it 2 times a month.
Yeah.
And we can make the payment on it.
Yeah.
And I know I'll rent it more than 2 times a month. It's a no-brainer. It's Moab.
Yep.
Well, I got a buddy involved, and he's like, we should do it. We should partner up and do it. And I said, yeah, let's do it. And his dad was, well, first off, we put together a business plan.
Yep.
Walked into Zion's bank, and we said, hey, we want to buy 4 Jeep Rubicons. Will you lend us $100,000?
Yeah.
And the guy all but laughed us out of the bank. Like, if it would have been anybody else, they would have just laughed at us.
How old were you guys at this time?
Oh, fresh up, 20? I was 21.
Yeah.
So 21 years old. So I didn't have $1 to my,
yeah,
no money.
Yeah. So just fresh off the mission.
Fresh
just got
off
home.
the mission. Yeah.
Thought this would be a great concept. Because obviously down in Moab, for those people that don't really know what Moab is, it's just the Jeeping Central basically of Utah.
Yeah. And
Everybody
I worked at a Jeep rental company before I left on my mission.
Yeah.
For like 2 months.
Yeah.
And then came back and I'm I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I've always been. When I was 14 years old, younger than that, I don't even know. I bought a riding lawnmower and went and mowed people's lawns. Like,
Yeah.
I got what I wanted. I wanted a riding lawnmower because our lawn was big. Figured it out. Went and mowed people's lawns from the very beginning. I was just trying to
Had a little drive in you to
have that
get
drive.
there.
Yeah.
So I guess you get laughed out of Zion's Bank. The guy's just like, you're an idiot.
he looked at us like, you want what? Like, you want me to give you $100,000 to go buy 4 Jeeps? And we're like, it's a solid plan.
I mean, I would have given it to you.
And he slipped us a note across the desk that says, never, never, never give up. Winston Churchill, you know, like,
Yep.
and I mean, it stuck with us. Me and my friend both were like, well, we just won't give up.
Yeah.
So we went to another bank, another financial institution, and they're like, no. But if you come up with 10% down,
There we go.
then we'll give you the loan.
Yeah.
And so I went and borrowed $10,000 from my girlfriend's dad, who is now my wife. So my father-in-law.
How funny would that have been, too, if that didn't end up being your wife?
Oh, man. So I went and borrowed $10,000 from him. Walked into the bank with $10,000 cash, and I was like, here you go.
Yeah.
And they gave us a loan, and it all went from there. I mean,
It's wild.
We paid that $10,000 off in 2 months. I mean,
Really?
we had rentals booked before we had Jeeps.
So how did you guys, I mean, this was probably early 2000s?
It's 2004.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, like, how did you guys even start to market that stuff? Is it something that you just tacked on with your dad's hotel, or was it like a concept that you guys had put together on how to get the word out there?
It was a little bit like with the hotel, but also we knew, because we were just in that scene, we knew a lot of people who came to Moab with friends.
Okay.
And so we gave a lot of discounts in the beginning because people would come with their friends, be like, hey, hook this guy up, you know. And I always try and count discounts as advertising.
Yeah.
Because you give someone a discount and they have a good time. I don't like to discount much of my product. I don't. But there's a time and a place. And if you can do that to the right person that's going to talk about it and,
Correct.
you know, sing praises,
Yeah.
well, it's advertising at that point.
No, and I think we kind of see that a lot, you know, really anywhere, any business that you're going to run into. I mean, we do that a lot on our side of it is really you can go get an interest rate wherever you want to go get it. You know what I'm saying? Like you can get online, you can try and figure it out. A lot of it comes down to customer service. Can they get it done in time? But even for us, sometimes when we get shopped or, you know, there's that kind of going back and forth between two different lenders, that's kind of our mentality too, is it's like, well, at least I'd rather have the at-bat and give them a good experience because the odds are that the word of mouth is going to be the way that I get to a lot more people, you know?
Word of mouth is king. I mean, in everything. Like burgers, I get people hitting me up all the time like, hey, advertise in this publication or that publication or this website or that website. I'm like, I'm focusing on word of mouth. I want people to walk out of my restaurant and talk about it either, you know, through their device or to their neighbor or whatever. And that's what you focus on, is focus on helping people and just straight up asking people, hey, tell your friend.
Yeah.
You know, please tell your friend how good of an experience you had.
Correct.
Eating this burger. And they do. I mean,
But what's crazy is
you have to provide the experience.
That's what I was just going to say. And the experience at Burly is one of a kind. You know what I'm saying? It's a burger that I can't find it. I've never found anywhere else. You know what I'm saying? So, but let's stick on Cliffhanger for a minute. So obviously you guys kind of start the company down in Moab.
Yep.
You're referring out like a lot of friends, family, giving them discounts. It kind of gets rolling. Like at what point did you think like, hey, this is, you know, obviously Burly Burger came down the road, but at what point did you guys decide like, let's just run Cliffhanger and let's see how big we can build this thing?
So it's funny you say that. Like neither one of us, the partners, both of us were in college when we started this. And we would, every single weekend, I was in Logan and my partner was in Cedar City. And to this day, he lives in Cedar City and I live in northern Utah. We would drive down on the weekends, bust our butts renting Jeeps, cleaning Jeeps, fixing Jeeps, whatever. I mean, there were times, our season kicks off on Easter Jeep Safari.
Yeah.
There were times we bought 4 Jeeps, drove them to Moab the night before Jeep Safari, put a lift kit and tires on every single one of those Jeeps that night, sent them out to rent the next morning.
That's wild.
Like it was a lot of work. I mean, we started with 4 Jeeps, and then my partner's like, you know what? Like, and I didn't really think about this. It was smart. I mean, he's like, we need to it costs us $200 to have a Jeep sitting on the lot. Like, let's just buy more Jeeps. It's advertising.
Yeah.
People, if we rent out all 4 of our Jeeps, we don't have anything. No one knows we're a Jeep rental company. So we just kept buying Jeeps and buying Jeeps and buying Jeeps. It's, we were turning them fast enough that we weren't losing money on them, but they were providing advertising. So, I mean, now we have, at any given point, like right now, I think we have 40 or 50 Jeeps.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have up to 70 Jeeps and then about 50 to 60 side-by-sides. Excuse me, mostly based in Moab. But
you guys branched out a little bit though, didn't you? Didn't you open up one in like Colorado?
We have actually 5 locations in Colorado. We've got Lake City, Colorado. They're kind of small on the Alpine Loop. I mean, you're familiar with Lake City. Silverton. These are beautiful mountain towns. Like if you're ever in Colorado, it's southwest Colorado by Durango. We're Hesperus is right by Durango is our newest location in Colorado. Dolores and what did I say? Lake City, Silverton, Hesperus, Dolores. And then we have 2 in Telluride. So we actually have 6. The 2 in Telluride might merge just because
That's awesome.
It doesn't, it doesn't make sense to have 2 locations there. But we had 2 operators that wanted to run there. So
cool. That's awesome.
Did it.
Give me the, I'm going to make you think about this off the top of your head. Worst renter you've ever had.
Oh, it's funny. Like there's always a name that sticks in my head. I don't even know if I should say his name. Let's call him John. I think his name was actually John. But
Botch that one.
It was worse when it was a young company.
Yeah.
Because we would lose a Jeep. If we had 6 Jeeps.
Yeah, and you lost one.
We lost one. Well, now we have only 6 Jeeps and we have it booked out for 2 weeks.
Correct.
But we're going to lose out on all that revenue, and their insurance isn't paying for the revenue.
Correct.
Well, this guy rolled a Jeep and came in and handed us the key, and he's like, "Here, this is where the Jeep is. It's at the eye of the well in the arches. Good luck." And
so he just rolled it, left it there,
brought us the key, and told us where it was. And I'm like, well, there's a damage deposit. Like, I have to charge your card.
Yeah.
This is for the deductible.
Yeah.
If we have to claim it on our insurance, this is going to be used to cover our deductible.
Yeah.
He signed the receipt for that. Like 100% his signature. Walked out of there and denied the claim. And I hate to disparage brands, but like a certain credit card brand sided with the customer. They're like, no, they disputed the claim, so we're going to give them their money back. And it was devastating to us. We were just 2 years old of a company. Yeah. We just lost a $25,000 Jeep. At the time, Jeeps were only $25,000.
That's wild.
And we just lost $25,000 Jeep. We're going to have to claim it on our own insurance, which you know what happens when you claim stuff on insurance.
Yep.
You get dropped.
Yep.
Luckily it was our first claim and it worked out. We got paid for it. And, but it was just that's the type of guy. And we've had more individuals like that, but that one hurt the worst because it was the youngest. We've probably had 3 people like that this year, but you get to the point where you're numb to people ruining your stuff because you have, we have 30 Jeeps in Moab now instead of 6.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, how often are you guys running into problems with people in Moab, like rolling them, going off-road where they shouldn't be? Are you guys trying to keep them on specific trails or not necessarily?
We have certain trails that are prohibited, like that are just a no-go.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily because the Jeeps aren't capable.
Yep.
It's because there's a high likelihood, like you go on these trails to test your limits in your own Jeep.
Yep.
And there's a high likelihood of damage. So if I tell a customer, look, don't go here, it's not because I don't want you to go there. It's because it's going to cost you money and you're not going to want to pay it.
Yeah.
And, whatever, And they come back with a damaged Jeep and they're like, well, I told you not to go there.
Yeah.
So you have to pay for this damage. And
Yeah.
so it's a weekly occurrence that we have something damaged over $1,000.
Yeah. Do you feel like most humans are pretty good with you guys as far as just
For the most part, like
Yeah.
99% of people that rent from us are great. They always, they have their insurance. If they wreck something, they're really apologetic and they take care of it,
Yep.
but there's always a few knuckleheads that are just, no, I don't want to pay for it.
Yeah.
It's a rental.
Yeah.
You can go anywhere in a rental.
So I know you guys were obviously doing like, the Jeep stuff down in Moab. You guys were living up this way. You mentioned I obviously know your wife. You guys live close by, so that makes it easy for me with Kira. But like, at what point did you and Kira, decide to get married? At what point did you guys live up this way? And then how was that stress of trying to be in Moab?
Well,
Plus living up here, what was that like?
it wasn't terrible. I mean, we enjoyed going home and she enjoyed going home, so it wasn't really that bad. I mean, we didn't have kids to haul. We
Yep.
were just two people at that time.
Yep.
And so, we'd go to school and we got married shortly after I got the loan from her dad. I asked
That's
him.
the collateral?
It's like 2 or 3 weeks later. I'm like, hey, by the way, can I marry your daughter?
That was to secure the collateral, dude, to make sure he actually got it back from you.
Yep. So, we got married. We got married in 2004. So we started the business in April. April. And then we got married in June.
Yeah.
So we were planning it.
You guys make it through college?
Yeah. Yeah.
Attaboy.
My wife, I mean, thanks to her, like there was a lot of times when I was like, this is, I don't know why I'm doing this,
Yeah.
like certain classes. And luckily I took the classes with her. Like, I wouldn't have passed. She did my homework. She did, you know what I mean?
I love it, dude.
And I knew, the thing is I knew what I was going to do.
Yeah.
And I thought about going on in college. I got my bachelor's degree and I was talking to a professor and I'm like, I'm going to go get my MBA. He's like, why? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because someone said I should get it. He's like, you're a business owner. Like,
Yeah.
you already
You
do
don't
it.
need anything.
You don't need an MBA.
Correct.
Don't waste the money. And it was, I mean, I don't know. Maybe my life would be completely different.
Yeah,
But
if you would have got it.
I'm kind of glad I didn't. I like where I'm at. So
Yeah. So kind of back to, kind of the flipping side of stuff, because I've heard rumors like you've flipped a lot of stuff in your entire life. Why, when did you begin, I guess, flipping and why?
Well, I mean, a big part of me flipping was to have freedom, because I was going to college and then in the weekends heading to Moab.
Yeah.
And so to have a job that tied me down, it almost wasn't an option if we wanted to be able to run a business.
Yep.
And so as soon as, I remember KSL was like, they had classifieds and I would sit on there for hours and I would look for the good deals. It didn't matter what it was. Like normally one of my rules that I set pretty early was, flip stuff that you like and you're not going to be sad to get stuck with.
Yeah.
Because if you buy something and you can't flip it, well, then you have something that's cool.
Yeah.
It's a bummer that you don't make money on it, but you have it.
Was the majority, obviously with you kind of being a mechanic and understanding the whole Jeep side of stuff, a lot of stuff that you were buying, did it have to do down the mechanical side? Like you were fixing it up, then just going off and selling it? Or
Yeah, a lot of times I'd buy a Jeep and I'd fix the Jeep and sell it for a couple $100 more than I bought it for.
Yeah.
And we're talking junk Jeeps, like Jeep Cherokees, like
Yeah.
just stuff that, I could afford to buy. And
I love that you
could
just
sell
said
it.
a Cherokee's junk and then you own a bunch of Rubicons.
I loved my Cherokee. I had a Cherokee for a long time and I loved it. Like
That's one of my favorite
I
things.
wheeled the heck out of it. And it was great, but Cherokees with 250,000 miles that don't run, that need a fuel pump, you could, at that time, you could pick them up for $200 or $300.
Yeah.
And then turn and sell them for $800 if it ran.
Yeah.
So
the government doesn't really listen to my podcast yet. So my question is like, on average, what would you say you were making per month, give or take, trying to flip some stuff? I know it's probably all over the place, but
it was.
to me, this is super interesting.
it was a different time, right? Like we
Correct.
were in '05, like '05, '06.
Yep.
I don't know. Like I was making just enough to live. So
Yeah.
a couple thousand.
Yeah.
You know, I was making a couple thousand a month.
What I think is cool
Guns,
about this, though,
Jeeps,
Yeah.
whatever I could.
yeah, I think what's very cool and interesting about this subject, though, is like you took something. I mean, you understood you had a problem, which is I got to get to Moab every single week, right?
Yeah.
I got to get down there on the weekends. I got to make sure the Jeep rental company's running. And then it's kind of sitting there thinking like, I got to go to school, and then what am I going to do on the side? And what I love about this conversation is it's more of, hey, I've got X amount of hours per day to put my time and efforts into something that I truly want to do and something that I enjoy doing, which is obviously buying Jeeps and staying in, kind of what you said is I'm only going to buy stuff that I enjoy having.
Right.
Which means you enjoy working on it, which means you enjoy selling it, which there's a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of passion, I think, behind the actual flipping of stuff. I think about my home right now and like my basement's cluttered with toys. And my instinct is, honey, just take it to the DI. I would never sit there and sell Barbie one by one,
Right.
ever. But I think there's a lot of people out there that would probably love to sell a Barbie one by one, have it all dressed up, make a couple bucks, make some shipping, get it out of here. And I think what I want everybody to kind of take away from this is, how many hours a day were you going to school?
Oh, I'd probably had 3 classes a day.
Yeah.
I tried to do all my classes though on Tuesdays and Thursdays as much as I could.
Yeah.
Because then I had a long weekend.
Yep.
Every weekend I would have
Love it.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yep.
And so I wasn't really, I'd come home Monday earlier so that I could get settled in and ready for school
On Tuesday.
But, just working my classes that way. And I mean, back then there wasn't an iPhone, so I couldn't sit in class and scroll KSL. Well, there was laptops.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out, like, I got to get a laptop so that I can sit in class and find stuff to buy, and just sit there. And so I'd sit there in class instead of paying attention. This is why my wife had to pass college for me. But, I'm paying attention. So I got good at surfing KSL. I mean, before I started Burly, I was working a job, and it was the same thing. Like, I was still doing it.
Yep.
But I could sit and talk about Jeep parts all day long on the phone and scroll through KSL, multitasking, recognizing good deals. I don't know. That's just what and I still do it, not as much anymore, but I enjoy it. So.
But again, I think what I love about this is like you're playing in a field that you know. So when you're scrolling KSL, like what you can wheel and deal, that you're going to make a profit if you end up buying it, and then you're trying to resell it. And I think that's probably key to actually making a little bit of income on the side.
Yeah, for sure.
So talk to us a little bit, like the concept of Burly Burger, like how did that even, for you and your wife, like how did that conversation go down? Where did the idea even come from? How did you guys even come up with the concept of Burly itself and the design of the name of the burgers and kind of staying down that theme?
So, I mean, I was, like I said, through Cliffhanger and through the Jeep Rental, I was just in that industry.
Yeah.
Well, an opportunity shortly after I graduated, I did mortgages for a while. And 06, or no, I quit in 08 because it was like,
it was a little rough.
I graduated in 06 and I'd do a couple loans a month and it was good money.
Yeah.
And it was freedom where I could sit and
do whatever you wanted.
Do stuff on KSL.
Yeah.
And so, but 08, I was like, I'm done. I don't know enough people up here to make it work for me. I didn't. I had a 435 number, and so nobody wanted to call me. And so there was a job that posted in Logan, and it was what I loved. I mean, I love Jeeps, and this was a Jeep modification shop where we would put big motors into Jeeps.
Yep.
And so I applied for the job. I went up and I interviewed. And they're like, all right, well, we'll get back to you. And I didn't really hear from them. And finally, I'm just like, you know what? I got to sell this. So I called him and I was like, hey, when do I start?
Assuming the sell.
Yeah. And he was kind of caught off guard. He's like, well, we hired this other guy, but why don't you start next week?
No way.
Yeah. And I worked there for 5 years. I loved the job. So I started off as a sales, just, I'd sell engine, transmission, transfer case.
Yep.
Like either up to a full powertrain, like the whole entire engine, transmission, or I would just sell a gear, like one single gear out of a transfer case. So there were so many parts, and you almost had to know off the top of your head, like how many teeth were on a gear in this certain transmission. And there was like 12 transmissions that we dealt with. Yeah. And so it was pretty technical. It was fun though. It kept you on your toes. There was always something different. And then I transitioned from a salesperson into marketing. I'm like, hey, you guys need a marketing guy. And I think when I started, it was like, they were doing a couple million a year in sales. And I'm like, you guys need a marketing guy. Like, let me take it over. Let me just show you, what I think we should do. And we would go to shows and we would sell stuff. And when I left, and part of the reason I left was like, they're like, we're too busy in the shop. Like, you guys are selling too much stuff.
Really?
And so they were kind of dialing us back. And I'm like, I'm a sales guy. Like, I was still a sales guy and the marketing guy. I'm like, that ain't going to work for me. Like, I'm not going to dial back. Yeah. And so they put us on salary versus a commission. Yep. And I'm like, it doesn't motivate me, but I'll try it. So I tried it for a year on salary, and I was like, but in that time period, they started building that building down here. And I told my wife, I'm like, gosh, dang, you know what South Weaver needs is a real good burger joint. I hope someone puts a burger joint in.
My favorite thing about South Weaver right now that you got your burger joint in, I make fun of my wife all the time because she's from South Weaver, and once you get sucked in, you can't leave. No, you know what I'm saying. And so I love it. You get off the highway, you come into South Weaver, you got a burger, you got pizza, or you got Maverick. Yeah, I'd probably say some of the lowest calorie non-fried food you can ever enjoy. Like if this city isn't like an overweight city here,
oh man, laugh. Well, I mean, hey, we have salads.
That is true.
They have a lot of dressing on them.
Your Wonder Woman salad's unbelievable, by the way.
But yeah, so she's like, well, why don't you do it? And I must have been, somewhat miserable in my job and I was having some questions about it. Like, why am I working for somebody? Like, why am I doing this? Yep. I enjoyed the job. I liked the company. I loved the idea of it, but I didn't like the idea of not being my own boss and working for myself. And so she's like, why don't you do it? And I'm like, I've never worked in a restaurant, let alone like started one, but all right. So I started thinking about, driving. I had 2 hours a day. I drove up an hour and back an hour. And so, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about how they took a supplement company, and it was like, there's not a supplement company that makes like really high quality supplements. Yeah. And so that's how they broke into the market. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm like, gosh dang, there's not, there's a lot of burger joints. There's a lot of cheap burger joints, but like, correct, there's not a quick serve burger joint that's like really high quality, best you can get burger. Yeah. I'm like, that's what I'm going to go with. And I've always been that way cooking in my house. Like, I've cooked a lot. I love to cook. Yeah. And me and my wife would have arguments because she'd buy cheap ingredients and I'd be trying to cook something good and it was just wouldn't turn out like I remembered it. You know what I mean? And so I told her, I'm like, oh, we got to buy the best ingredients. Like, everything's going to be the best. Yeah. If we're going to make a burger, we're going to make it the best. Yep. And that's what we ran with. And so
I mean, that's awesome because obviously you took something that was like, hey, there's a little bit of a problem here. If we're going to go against Wendy's or McDonald's, like we're probably going to lose, as far as pumping out burgers. So you kind of took a problem, solutionized it with trying to make a much better tasting burger that actually has a lot of crazy stuff on top, which I love.
And that all just comes from a fat kid head. You know what I mean? Like, I just know what I like. And there's some that are like kind of just improved versions of other places' burgers, but they're staples. Like a pastrami burger is a staple in Utah. Yep. But it's, our pastrami's better. Like, I guarantee you won't find a better pastrami on a burger anywhere. Yeah. And I guarantee you won't find a better patty on a burger anywhere. Yeah. So.
Talk to us on where did the idea of Burly Burger come from? Where's the name come from?
So I've been quote unquote burly my entire life. My mom never wanted to call me fat. And so me and my cousin, we're about 3 weeks apart. He's a big dude as well. And this one time we were traveling back east. He's from Indiana.
Okay.
We were traveling back east, and everybody wanted to eat at Village Inn, and me and him, of course, were like, we want to go to McDonald's.
Yeah.
We want to go get a burger. And so I'm like, we'll just walk across the street. You can see us from here. We were 10 or something like that, and we're in like St. Louis, Missouri or something. My mom's like, you can't walk across the street in St. Louis. And we're like, it's right there. And so she finally, like, we were relentless, right? She finally let us. She's like, listen, if someone tries to kidnap you, then just hold on to each other, hug each other, and sit down. No one can pick up you burly boys. You know? So
that's where the name started.
So then they started calling us the Burly Boys.
Yeah.
Me and Conrad. So he's on the menus, Fat Connie.
That's hilarious.
And Conrad, me and Conrad are the Burly Boys. So, I mean, we were just always called Burly.
Yeah.
So it had to be named Burly Burger.
Yeah.
And,
Love it, dude.
And then we named all the burgers after, burly celebrities or big celebrities or someone that, fit the mold.
Yeah. Before we dive into like some of the things that you have at the restaurant, my question, I think a lot of people are thinking this, how long you been growing the beard for? When's the last time you actually shaved it?
So I think I only shaved it for like 1 week in maybe 2010.
It's the last time you shaved it.
Yeah, I haven't touched a razor.
What's the upkeep on that puppy?
I mean, I go to a barber and just obviously it's a mess. It's all over the place, but I just deal with it.
Yeah.
Usually when my mustache starts growing into my mouth and I can't eat a burger anymore,
yeah,
I'll go get it trimmed.
Yeah.
And that's like my gauge of, hey, bud, you need a haircut.
Yeah. That's funny.
So.
No, talking about the menu, like my wife and I, we watch some of those like food eating shows, like those guys that go around the country just eating like, there's always one thing on the menu that's like, give it a try and we'll give you a shirt or whatever that is, right? The name to fame, get on the wall, whatever that looks like. You guys have one. It's called the Brigham, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess tell us how many patties, how big is that thing? How many people have actually eaten that thing?
God, there's been quite a few. I mean, first off, the Brigham came about because we had almost all the burgers named.
Yep.
And there was one that we were struggling with because it was like, we had the burger, but most of the burgers have like associations. Like the Farley has a chicken wing on the burger, so they were easy to name.
Yep. The Rock's got a pineapple on it. The Rock has
a pineapple. The Belushi's he's not Italian, but he plays Italian in a lot of movies. So that's our Italian burger. But we were like, gosh, we need to name this other burger. Like, I think it was the Mr. T or something. I don't even know what one it was, but we were Googling Burly Man. And it must have been something to do with like the location settings. And Brigham Young popped up as a burly man. And I saw it, and it was like this just awesome. Clicked in my head. I'm like, Brigham. I'm like, we need to name a burger Brigham Young, or Brigham. And then I'm like, well, we could do a challenge. Yeah. And it could have 10 patties, all his wife's named Patty. And the description just flowed right out of my mouth. I'm like,
so you took the Mormon concept of multiple wives and brought it into a burger.
It's funny. I've had people email me like, oh, what you're doing is embarrassment to the Mormon community or very offensive to Mormons. And I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Just a burger.
You can be offended if you want.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Just having fun. Just a little spin
I'm at church on Sunday too. With my beard.
That's funny. So this burger is obviously 10 patties.
Yeah.
Fries.
Pound of fries and a large over the top shake. All in all, we figure it's roughly 8,000 calories.
Really?
So.
And how many people? You said a handful.
I think we've had hundreds of people try. I think we've had maybe, at the South Weber location, it was a big deal to try and beat the time. We had someone eat it in 6 minutes.
No way.
Just under 7 minutes.
Like
It's
one of these
nuts.
professional guys that actually films it?
Yeah, so
he come in?
they have YouTube channels and
Yep.
they'll come in and they'll film themselves
Eating it.
and it's a freak show.
It's wild.
It's crazy. But
I know. If you haven't seen with one, I don't know what guy it is because I'm going to botch this. I should have looked it up before we did this interview. But there's this skinny dude that Keely and I watched. It was like a full series of
Yeah.
him just eating. And it was unbelievable as he traveled the country, like the amount of food that he could put down. Because a lot of them are like time stamped.
Yeah.
Like you got to do it under an hour or you got, you know what I'm saying? And I just remember watching this breakfast one of him. And it was like unbelievable how much breakfast food that was sitting there. And he pounded the whole thing in less than an hour.
yeah, I think I know who you're talking about, and just they're freaks of nature. I mean, it's crazy how much they eat, but yeah, I mean, and people will come. I just wanted to put it on the menu because I thought it was funny.
Yeah.
I had no idea what kind of response it would give. But all kinds of people come, and it's not a profitable burger. Like I don't make money on selling a 10 patty burger because it would have to be so expensive that no one would want to try it. So I had to put a decent price point on it. And, you know, with Brigham Young, I was like, oh, $47, like Days of 47, you know, and
I just thought everything out, didn't you?
Oh man,
I didn't
it's
know you
all
guys were
there.
this deep. I just thought like the names were cool.
And so it's $47, but the thing is everybody brings, you know, if one person eats it, they have 10 people watching them.
Yeah.
And those 10 people aren't just sitting there, they're eating burgers. So
Correct.
it's not profitable itself, but
Yeah.
the
People that come along
concept
with it.
is, and it's,
I kind of want to shift into like the business side of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like we talked a little bit about Cliffhanger, how it got started, how you got a, you know, kind of a loan from the future father-in-law. What was like going in to start a burger joint? Like, what was that like? Who did you guys contact to even understand like what you needed in the kitchen, how to even run one of those places?
Yeah.
I mean, is this something you just shot from the hip, or was there somebody that quote unquote mentored you or you could reach out to?
no, I for sure had a mentor, like, well, and he's actually one of my best friends growing up in high school. His dad owned a restaurant in Moab. It's the one up on the hill. It's called Sunset Grill.
Okay.
It's an awesome place. Well, so I'm like, I called him. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna start a burger joint. Like, I've got some money saved. I think I have enough that I can just mostly pay cash for it. Like, I'm just gonna do it, you know. And he's like, oh, you're crazy, but I'll help you. And so he came up and he actually worked it with me for like the first 2 weeks.
Really?
He went to some tastings with me and, you know, just did some stuff and helped execute like what was in my mind, you know, because I didn't really have like, I mean, I knew exactly what I wanted, but I wasn't sure how to do it in the restaurant world. Does that make sense? Like I could do it at my house all day long, but it's a completely different story when you're trying to do 100 of them an hour.
Yeah.
And so, you know, to be able to do that and streamline that, you know, he got us pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
Like he was invaluable.
Yeah.
You know, and so he came up and helped us do that. So,
I think again, what's interesting is like everybody that we sit with on the podcast, like whenever we ask that question of like, how did the business come to fruition? It's always like, oh, I knew somebody. Like I had a friend.
Oh, yeah.
Or like this person was close to us and that's why I wouldn't ask. And I think it's funny to me because like a lot of people I think when they get stressed in life, because like you, it was like, I love this job that I was sitting at. I loved working in that environment, but they changed the way my pay structure was and it just wasn't motivating anymore. If they would have left you probably on a commission-based structure, you'd probably still be working there right now, don't you think?
there's a chance. I mean, there was still the fact that I wasn't working for myself.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, when you're on a commission base, you are working for yourself.
Correct.
You know, you're doing what you get in what you get out what you put in.
Correct.
And when they took that away from me, I was like, this.
Yeah.
They still said, "Oh, we're going to give you bonuses." And
Yeah.
I'm like, well, and I was getting paid roughly the same amount
Yeah.
in salary. You know, it was a little bit less.
Yeah.
But
Just a little deflating. But I love what happened there is I just completely changed your mindset on like, I'm pretty much done here. Like I'm ready to move on. And I think that opens up the mind or the next level or the next game, however you want to look at it of what are we going to do next? How are we going to pivot? How are we going to make this work? So we've chatted about this, obviously just being friends and in the neighborhood and stuff like that. But talk to me on like you being surprised at how many burgers you guys were actually selling. Because I mean, I remember asking you like, what was kind of your break even point? And you were just like, dude, here's the number. And I can't believe we're selling X amount more.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like it's crazy.
I mean, when I sat down and put together like a plan of, you know, because I had to call and find out, well, how much is this space to lease?
Yeah.
You know, how much, you know, roughly is gas and water and sewer and utilities and all this stuff, you know. And I was like, gosh dang, it's South Weber. There's nothing else here. There's a pizza place that sells $5 pizzas that, yeah, people are going to flock there for a few months and then they're going to get sick of it.
Yep.
You know, but I'm like, God, if I could sell 60 burgers a day, I could be okay. I mean, I'll make a good living for myself. I'll have the freedom. I'll be able to come down and sit down and have a burger with my friends whenever I want. And,
Yeah.
you know, it'd be cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, the first night we opened, like the first week we opened,
Yeah.
we sold out of food every single night.
Really?
And granted, like there's a lot of newness to it. And I was like, oh, this is going to last like, you know, maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And I remember my mentor, partner, whatever. He's not my partner, but you know, my friend, he looks at me after about the third night. He's like, dude, it's time to make a big boy. Cause we were like ordering like, how many burgers you think we're going to sell tomorrow? Like 100 maybe.
Yep.
He's like, dude, you have a whole walk-in cooler. It's time to make a big boy order.
Yeah.
And I just remember him putting down like these numbers and I'm like, I'm going to spend that much money on food.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe this. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I think the order was like, you know, $5,000. And I'm like, dude, that's $5,000 like gone.
Yeah.
And it filled my fridge and it was gone in 2 days.
That's wild.
You know what I mean? And I couldn't believe it. So we just kept doing it. I mean, now your orders are way bigger than that. I mean,
Yep.
but it was crazy. Like I couldn't believe how it worked. And I think having that person in your life to push you over that edge is like, dude, do it. You know, you're time to make a big boy. Cause I could have kept just ordering a little food here and there and not running a good operation, but he knew enough. He managed Rodizio's for a lot of years and he knew enough to say, look, you've got something here. Do it.
And I think that's what's cool, right? Because he's probably actually been in that area. So he's seen what you've got to do to go to the next stage. And that's why I think like a lot of times when we talk about coaching or being around the right people or running in the right flock or, you know what I'm saying, whatever verbiage you want to say there. But the intent here is you chose somebody to be mentored that's been there, done that, understands that like, hey, Brad, that's really not that big of a risk, dude. Like, look at this stuff on paper. Like you basically investing a little bit more into your business is only going to reap a little bit more of the rewards because you're just holding yourself back.
Right.
And so just dive in, just go, you know? And I think that's pretty cool when somebody believes in you and obviously shares kind of their mindset or what they've been through that kind of helps you and kind of makes you a little bit more successful as well.
Right.
So, talk to me like, what was it like with Kira, kids, starting this business? Like how many hours a week were you putting in? Was it a stressful time for you guys? Is it something that took a big leap of faith? And
from the day, I mean, we opened the day before my birthday in 2017 and I worked 14, 15 hour days for, 8 months, just straight. Like, I mean, we had Sundays off. I remember getting mad at Kira one day because it was Sunday and we close on Sundays and she's like, we got to go down and like change something on the sign. And I'm like, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
Like I was pissed. I was so mad.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to go down there. And, we went down, we changed whatever, but it was like, it was pretty stressful, for the first 8 months. And then after that, like I probably worked there every day of my life for 2 years.
Yeah.
There were a few days when I was like, hey, I'm going to go snow biking. And I went there and then went snow biking and then came back to there. And, like the first time I went snow biking, I remember the system crashed and nobody could get a hold of me because I'm out of service. And, I'm like, oh man, one day I decide I'm leaving and, but it all works out. And I think the more you're able to go and do that kind of stuff, and you have a team that, that's the key, is you hire people that can really take care of stuff like that. It gets easier, but.
Do you feel like a lot of Burly was because Kira actually believed in what you guys were trying to do?
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know how much, like, a lot of Burly was because I believe in Kira.
Yeah. Because
I know, like, she's worked her butt off to be, a respiratory therapist, and she's, I mean, I don't know, I never see her at her job. I don't like going to hospitals, so I went maybe twice in the 17 years that she worked to have lunch with her. But, in my eyes, she was the best respiratory therapist that hospital had.
Yeah.
So I had that faith in her that, like, well, if I fail at Burly,
we're still fine.
We have my wife that can go to work, pay the bills until I get something going again.
Yeah.
Because I'll get something going again.
That's funny, dude. Like, that's no different than my story. Because, like, early on when Keely and I got married, it was the same thing. Like, she was running gyms. She had a bunch of, like, training facilities open, doing pretty well. Mm-hmm. And I felt like that was the risk that I could take in my life, which is like, I'm going to go essentially start my own business, be a full commission employee, really kick this thing off and see if we can get somewhere.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember getting in like a couple months in and thinking like, yeah, this probably isn't for me. You know what I'm saying? And I think if she probably would have looked at me and said, yeah, let's do something else, we probably would have done something else, but I think with kind of the group that we were surrounded by, family, friends that have kind of been in the loan industry, I think that is what kind of helped us kind of move forward as well. You know what I'm saying? We say this a lot, but I think obviously marrying the right person is the key to 100%. Success.
Like without her being my rock, like I'd be lost. I'd have no direction in my life. I'd be out hunting, broke as a joke, you know? And it's not like she pressures me to like, hey, you need to go make money. It's not any of that. It's that I think she just knows how to make sure that I'm focused in the direction. Like I've got, so many things going on that, she grounds me to a point where I can get stuff done.
Yeah. If there's one takeaway from everything that you've learned, what would be the one thing that you would suggest to everybody as far as like, whether it's take the leap of faith or like starting something or, whatever that is, what would be the one takeaway from starting Burly or Cliffhanger that you would give everybody advice on?
Oh, like you said, take the leap. Just do it. You know what I mean? Like you don't know how good you can do until you do it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I mean, you can be confident in yourself and you can be confident, but a lot of people are scared to start a business because they just don't know. It's an unknown. Well, you don't know until you try.
Yeah.
And so just try it. If it doesn't work out, what's the worst thing that, you go back to working the job you worked before or Bingo. Something similar to it and you're in the same position.
Correct.
But if you hit a home run, you're, even if it's for a few years, you're way further ahead. You have all the knowledge and practice and whatever you need to do it again.
I don't think people talk enough about that, right? Let's just assume you failed in the burger industry. Mm-hmm. The thing is like you learned how to open some up. You learned how to manage something. Yeah. You learned how to order take. You learned how to rent a space out. Like there's so many things that you would have never learned in your entire life if you wouldn't have just taken the leap.
Learned how to wash dishes.
See, my mom taught me that at a very young age, Brad. I want to shift a little bit. You're a big hunter. We go hunting every little bit, but I'm nothing like you. When did hunting start for you? Is that something that like your family enjoyed doing? Like where does the love actually come from?
Yeah, my earliest memories are hunting with my dad or family or whatever. I mean, it was just something. Like I said, growing up in Moab, we were country. And we'd go out and every chance we got, we'd go shoot small game. And I mean, as soon as I could get a big game license, that's what I did.
Cool.
I went and got it just is something that like I feel like it pushes you. It's one of those things that pushes you because you have to work hard. It's not like you just go out and there's a deer, I'm gonna shoot it. You have to even if you are a road hunter, it's still a lot of work if you want to shoot something quality or
correct.
So
Talk to me. I mean, we've talked on a couple of your hunts that you had. Talk to us on like one of the coolest hunts, one of the best experiences that you've had.
There's two that are that are my favorite ever. I mean, I just last year experienced coos deer hunting in Mexico, and it's so much fun. I mean, I don't know if it's the place that we ended up going, but we saw so many deer, and you're able to look over all these deer, and I mean, it's just a good time. It's steep, rugged country, but it's it's fun. So that, but one of the best times I've ever had hunting was just Wyoming antelope hunting. Really? I love that. It's so much fun chasing those things around. It's just a good time. So, yeah. But we went on this one hunt in Wyoming where we bought these tags left over, clear over by Laramie. So we took some time off of work, and we're going to stay in Laramie for like 4 days. And we talked to the DNR officer, did all our research, and he's like, oh, there's this place like where you can boat across this lake and access some land across the lake. And but that's the only way you can get to this land. There's always antelope back there. So we took my dad's old fishing boat and we boated across this lake, and we got to the other side, and it was like we bottomed out 50 yards from the shore. and it's end of September in Wyoming. It's freezing cold, and we're like, we could see goats up there. We're like, well, we got to get to them. So we rolled up our pants because it looked like it was about 2 feet deep. Took one step, and we were like a foot of water and like 2 feet of mud. Sloshed all the way up there. We all shot pretty good goats. Hauled them back out to the boat, and we look over, and there's a truck just drove up the side of the lake. shot one. We're like, how did you get over here? We drove. There's a road right there. But it was so much fun.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The cool thing with you is like you obviously just took your daughter on a hunt. I thought that was actually pretty cool. Oh, is that how old is she?
She's 12.
Yeah. Does she like it?
Oh, she loves it. It was like, she got so lucky though. She got, gifted a bear tag in Wisconsin. So her first big game animal was like this trophy bear, and it was way cool. It was
only cool down experience. Here from there.
Yeah.
I thought the story that you told me about that was pretty interesting of like, because when you tell the story, when you told it to me, like I was trying to visualize it, right? Like you guys are trying to bait a bear in, and then all of a sudden you tell me like you had to get down and the bear was in the cornfield and you guys just went after it. And I sit there and I'm like, so you got your daughter, she's going to shoot a bear in a cornfield from like 10 feet, and how's it not going to attack you?
Well, so the guide wouldn't take my daughter in the corn. So this was there was another, my partner had his daughter with us.
Yeah.
And she's 15 or 16. And,
yeah.
My daughter had already killed her bear. So what they do in Wisconsin is they have baits.
Yep.
And you go check the baits, and then if there's a track, then they'll turn out dogs on the track, and you chase the dogs until they tree the bear.
Yep.
So Kaylee shot hers, and then Lexi, my partner's daughter, they had a bear that they were chasing, and it went into the corn. And if it goes into the corn, a lot of times the dogs will bay it up.
Yeah.
They'll surround it, and that bear will just sit there.
Yeah.
And you have to walk in and
sounds terrible.
Just grab your dogs and get out, or if it's a good bear, you get it.
Yeah.
Well, we'd seen the bear. We knew it was a good bear because we watched it run across the road into the corn. We're like, well, shoot.
Yeah.
So we ran in after it. And I mean, you're running through corn and you can't see 5 feet in front of you.
Yeah.
And you're just running towards the sound of the dogs.
Yeah.
And luckily, like, we got to almost to where the bear was. Like, I was pretty excited to see it because, I mean, it wasn't me walking up to the bear and shooting it. I would do it, but
yeah,
it was a little bit nerve-wracking. But once we got up to it, the bear took off again and went up a tree. So we didn't actually have to shoot it out of the corn. But
that's what I'm saying, though. That would be wild. That would terrify me if I had my daughter in there.
The whole time you were going through that corn, you're just like, oh, man, like, is a bear. They tell stories of bears just, like, running straight past you through a corn row. Like, they'll just run right by you.
Really?
And
that's wild. The one thing that I do kind of want to end on is you were part of hide and seek with us, which I appreciate more than ever that you came out. What did you enjoy about hide and seek? Like, what was cool for you?
Well, I mean, I like playing. You know, I work hard and I play hard. And I was just a old time playing. You know, I'm disappointed in myself. I didn't find one person.
Do you know what I'm like? I hate using the word disappointment because that's like your mom telling you she's disappointed, and then you feel worse than her just probably beating you with a wooden spoon or something. You know?
I feel like I let you down because like you invited me to be there because like, oh, this guy will find some people.
He's good at hunting. He'll figure this out.
The girl that was.
That's what I was gonna say. Like, what is crazy for those of you that haven't watched hide and seek, you need to go watch it. But I remember once because the being very honest. The ending was very anticlimactic. We couldn't find the girl. Like, she just showed up out of nowhere, and she didn't even know she won. So it was like, it really sucked for us because I thought like the end of this was going to be crazy cool.
Yeah,
you know, like fireworks, the whole 9 yards. So
like,
it was a little anticlimactic.
Cheering, and she's like, "What?
Yeah,
I won."
Yeah, and so like when I had my team basically cut the film, like they were like, "Oh my gosh, we found the ending to this," and Brad stared at her, and I'm like. What the heck? And so like in the video, it's hilarious to watch you because I'm like, you stared at the bag that she was under and her stuff was right next to it. Did you even have any idea that was even her?
No, I thought the stuff, because there was a clown so she was under the crate that the clown was in. Yeah. So she was getting smashed or something. I don't know. I walked around. That clown didn't bother me, you know. Correct. They were creepy and all, but I walked around and I looked down and I saw a plastic bag that was half buried, and I was like, oh, there's probably a reason for that in this cornfield. They probably have it buried to block water. A few things went through my head, and I'm just like, I didn't touch it. Yeah. And I saw the backpack and I saw the stuff, and I just assumed it was. I think I even asked the clown, like I've asked a few others, is this your stuff? Yeah.
Yeah. You asked that in the video, and of course she didn't say a word.
And they're like, growled at me or something. I'm like, I think that means yes.
What's crazy to me though about the hide and seek thing is I don't think I was even prepared for what people were going to do. Like if you would have told me people were hiding under crate, first off, I won't lie. Like I haven't been down to Black Island Farms in a really long time. Yeah. I didn't even know what was out in the corn. Like, I didn't do my due diligence of, like, where people were actually going to hide. Yeah. You know, I was more worried that people were just going to be in the corn maze and they were going to get caught. Right. You know, so, like, when she brought a hammer and dug a huge hole and sat under a crate all night, I'm like, I didn't even know people got under the crate. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So I was a little bit blown away. But, hide and seek for us was, like, super cool. We love that you were a part of it, you know. More than anything, we're probably going to do it next year. We're probably going to invite you back. You're going to have redemption on. All right, I'm going to find what I'm saying.
10 people next year.
Yeah, yeah. Kind of last thing to end on, Brad. Like earlier we talked about that business that you were working for quite a while that had all those truck parts, the engines, things like that. You obviously have Cliffhanger that you've done a really good job of. Burly's killing it. You've got 2 locations. Looking to open up some more, franchise it. Do all that fun stuff. Like, talk to us on. I guess 2 things. Number one, like when did you realize like you were really good salesman, marketer, like moving the business forward with growing businesses? And number 2, like how hard of it, like, is that pretty simple for you to like put that concept into play? Or is that something that like you take quite a while strategically to kind of think about and then kind of go from there with?
I mean, I'm that guy. Like, I mean, I've put together formal business plans before, and I've put together sales proposals and that kind of thing, and marketing proposals and this and that. I don't know if I'm like really good at that portion of it, but I am good at, I did realize like when I went to Dixie State before I went on a mission, it was the same thing. I'm like, I got a job working. Well, so I guess I kind of lied before. I didn't really think about this until now, but I've never worked in a restaurant. Well, I got a job working in the cafeteria. Yeah. For like 2 days. I'm like, this sucks. Yeah. I hate this because like people would come by that like I wanted to be friends with and stuff like that, and I'm wearing a freaking hairnet, and of course I didn't have a beard then, but like I just looked like a goober with my gloves, and I'm like, this is stupid. I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. Which, I mean, there's no shame in it, but like, it just wasn't my deal. Like I was tending a salad bar.
Yep.
And my dad got me the job because he knew some people down there. Well, he also like, I loved guns. I love hunting. So I went into Dixie Gun and Fish, and my dad, the guy that owned Dixie Gun and Fish was actually from Moab.
Yeah.
And so my dad knew him. He didn't talk to him or anything, but I knew who he was, like through association. And I'm like, you guys hiring? Like, I'd much rather sell guns than do this. And he's like, yeah, we could use some help for the holidays. And so I got a job at the gun store, and like I sold the crap out of guns.
Yeah.
And my boss would come out and be like, did you really just sell that? I'm like, yeah. Like, just have to put, you know what I mean?
A little natural.
Yeah. So I realized I was like good at selling stuff that I loved.
Correct.
So, you know, it just went into Jeeps, Jeep parts,
Yeah.
food. You know, I just learned I was good at selling stuff. I had to write a check when I left that job to the store. I didn't make a dime, but I loved it. Like, I was so in debt. I was so in debt with guns that like I had to write him a check to leave. Like, I'm leaving.
Yeah, that's
All
awesome.
right, well, you owe me money.
Yeah, I think my takeaway from like talking to you this whole time is it's like just do what you love. That's kind of like
100%.
the end of this. You know what I'm saying? It's like the only way you're going to grow a business, the only way that you're going to figure stuff out is having a passion basically for what you really want to do.
Or learn to have a passion for what you're doing.
Yeah.
And you can do that too. Like, you know, if you're in a job that's a good job, like learn to be good at that and learn to love it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's just like anything else in life. You got to learn to love it. If you're not doing what you love, figure out why you're doing it and why you love it.
Correct.
If you're going to stay in it or do something you love.
Correct. No, but I appreciate your time, dude. I mean, it's been awesome having you. Thanks for coming over.
Anytime.
You know, but yeah, I think the last thing that I just basically want to say is, you know, for those of you people that are out there that are thinking about maybe making a chance or, you know, a change or whatever that looks like for you guys, it's like, number one, is that significant other on the same path as you? You know, is that something that they want to do? Number two, if it is, it's like figure out how to take the risk, you know, flip items, make some extra money, you know, figure out how to, you know, kind of negotiate, you know, try and get to where you want to be. And I think that's kind of what I want to leave everybody with is if you really want to do it, you can make things happen.
Well, even if you do it in small steps.
Yeah.
I mean, figure out what you want, figure out steps to get there. And, you know, if they're less consequential, like sometimes you can do it in steps, but like you figure out what you want. And if you focus on it and you decide you want it, you can get it. Like there's a way that you can get it.
Yeah.
Whatever you want.
Yeah. No, thanks for coming on.
Yep.
Brad Knight, Burly Burger, Cliffhanger.
No, thanks for having me.
The man. So thanks, bro.